Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 173 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian, and we have a great show tonight, Tim.
Yeah, really great interview with Cindy Sanabria, who runs the Horror Tour Guide website and a Women of Color in Horror website. And we're really excited to have her on and have her talk about not only those sites, but some of the work she's done in the field of horror. Really good interview that I think you guys are definitely going to enjoy. A little bit lighter side on the first chop this week, but let's get right into it. Okay, so Brian, I only really had one film that I watched, and I don't know where to begin with this one. So you remember a while back we had seen that preview of Toys of Terror. It looked like it had maybe some creepy toy stuff going on, and maybe had a little bit of a Krampus vibe to it.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to see it. So Olivia and I had a rare date night the other night, and so we were looking for something to rent, and I saw that one come up on the rental feed. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I really wanted to see this one." And she's like, "Oh, okay, we'll try it out." She's always down for a horror movie, and with the whole pandemic, there hasn't really been any like big blockbusters. We already saw Wonder Woman, and at that point, you're kind of left with either really obscure indie stuff or horror films. So, because horror films have continued unabated, those have not.
Yeah,
gone
they're
anywhere.
always in the pipeline.
Yeah.
I think that's why. Yeah.
So she said, "Oh, yeah, I'm sure I'll give it a try. It looks scary." So we rented this thing, and I found it was actually written by Dana Gould. Do you remember Dana Gould? From
The comedian.
The
right?
comedian, yeah. He was
in Tales from Halloween too. He was in that great segment with the warring home haunts.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
didn't realize he was a horror fan, but he actually wrote this film. And so the plot. Now, one thing I really liked right off the bat was it features a blended family. So it's a blended African American Caucasian family dynamic, and I really like that because you don't see a lot of. We just perfect example of our interview today. You don't see a lot of people of color in horror behind the scenes, but too often you don't see them in front of the camera either. So I really liked that there was a kind of a blended family situation here. But so you have a dad, a stepmother, the older teenage girl, and the two creepy twins of the movie, the younger sister and brother. I don't know if they're actual twins, but they look like it. And they are going to fix up this really crazy mansion out in the middle of nowhere to flip it. All right, because he's into like real estate and flipping houses. But I mean, this is a heck of a fixer-upper. I mean, this is a huge like multi-story mansion. So they go to, and it used to be a children's hospital. It's an abandoned children's hospital. So it's our dream job, Brian, is to fix up an abandoned children's hospital.
Yes.
So anyway, so they go there. So you got some of the kind of typical dynamics, the teenage girl that doesn't want to be there type thing, the dad that's trying to make everybody get along, the stepmom that doesn't really get along with the teenage girl. I mean, it's kind of got some of the same tropes in there. But when they get in, they discover this chest full of old toys, and then things start happening. Now, Brian, I don't know where to begin with this movie because everything around it it doesn't feel low budget. It features big sets. You got a really decent cast. Everything looks really mainstream. And then I don't think it's a spoiler to say that toys come to life in this movie. I mean, I think that's obvious from the trailer.
There's a bit of a key there in the title. Yeah.
For some reason, they used stop motion animation. And I'm talking like old school stop motion animation for all the toys.
I mean, I'm all for practical effects, but
but
when if it really hinders the flow of the movie.
It literally made my jaw drop when I saw the first toy move, and I was like, wait a minute. did they actually do that? And I wish you could have seen Olivia's face. She was like, what the F am I watching right now? And it's one of those things that, despite it, I still like kind of enjoyed the movie because I like Puppet Master. I like the full moon stuff. I like that kind of cheesy vibe.
Yeah, we do love that. So.
And I love that. And I feel like maybe that was somewhat intentional on their part, but it seemed so out of place with the rest of the movie that it was just such a drastic tonal shift between what you feel like is going to be like this kind of mainstream universal horror movie, and then you splice it with like this full moon type special effects with these toys.
But I don't remember seeing it that way in the trailer, or did they not show much?
That was a very, very cleverly edited trailer. Let me just say that. Yeah. So
gotcha. Okay.
I will say, despite all that, for some reason, I kind of still dug the movie. I don't know why, because I can't point to anything about it that's especially redeeming. In fact, I explained it to Brian. I said it feels like if Full Moon did a remake of Krampus, because it's very Krampusy in parts, very, very Krampusy in parts. But all I would say is, if you're gonna watch this, go in with an extremely, extremely open mind that you're gonna see those caliber of effects. Like it's gonna be like rock bottom. If you can get past that, I actually still kind of enjoyed the movie for what it was. But if you can't, I can fully understand. Olivia absolutely hated it, so I can totally understand if you can't get past that. But it was an adventure.
Doesn't sound like Olivia's cup of tea there.
No, it was really one of the most bizarre things I've seen in the past several months, for sure.
I didn't really get to watch much, although I did. I am continuing my Taking Shape 2 book, which I'm now about halfway through. Which is an accomplishment when you figure this thing is like 500 something pages, but it's so great. It's like I got into right now I'm up to the sequences where they're talking about all the possibilities, all the lost stories of Halloween 9 that was supposedly and this was of course taking place after Resurrection and stuff. So there's one cool storyline that's in there, and it's like some of it, like you could see, got reused later on in Halloween. Like the Blumhouse version a little bit even. I saw a couple of little like connections there, but I just love this book so much just because I love the lost things. There's a whole big massive section on when there were actually possibilities, and John Carpenter, believe it or not, and Clive Barker were involved when there was talk of the Michael Myers versus Pinhead movie.
Oh my gosh.
There was two particular stories that they did. I think one was called like Halloween, but one was a really good plot that somehow they intertwined Jamie Lloyd and Christy Cotton in the same universe there, and it was just some really cool idea. But you know what? The more I looked at it, it was very Freddy versus Jason. The second story. In there, I won't go into it. So when you eventually get to the book, you'll enjoy it all. But I'll just say it's funny to see how many times horror plots could totally be reused without even or almost being reused without knowing it. But so that's where I'm up to now. I'm up to all the different Halloween 9 plot points. There's actually a good one where it actually brought Busta Rhymes' character back. But he's like got this whole redemption angle where he's like he's making a documentary and he's not like joking anymore, and he feels really guilty for what happens and this whole big thing. And there's one actually involves one of them where it actually involves a snowstorm around Haddonfield. A rare snowstorm around the holidays, and there's one, I can't remember which storyline in there, but there's actually there's somehow a sequence that's very, very Scream 2-esque kind of thing. But there's also just like it's kind of like odd the way they do it. But there's one point where Michael Myers is actually being secretly held by the FBI in it, in like this Magneto type of cage, and it's pretty like the wild stories that could have been for Halloween. But I think the last one I read, actually, I was like, I could have dug that one. I could have seen that one. That one makes sense, and it brought back some other characters that you wouldn't expect in there, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm just loving this book. I can't wait. I can see this as being like a book I'll like read and then reread again just to catch it all.
Yeah, I cannot wait to get this.
It's just such a. I love this book. I love finding out about all the lost stories that could have been, because it's almost like finding like this like old like Fangoria article or something where they're talking about what could be coming out for the next Halloween, but like 30 of them. So it's like it's really cool.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's get right into our interview with Cindy Sanabria. This was a fantastic interview about a very important subject, I think. It was so great to have Cindy on to talk about all the work she's done, not only in her film industry, but also with her websites and all the stuff she's doing to get support out there for women of color in horror. I absolutely found it fascinating.
It's really impressive.
Yeah. All right, so without further ado, our interview with Cindy Sanabria.
As you know, Tim and I are huge fans of talking with people in the horror industry. Tonight we have the pleasure of talking with someone who has done a little bit of everything in the world of horror. She's created and runs not one, but 2 horror websites, including one that focuses on women of color in horror. So let's give a warm Civil Gore welcome to Cindy Sanabria.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, guys. Gory greetings, everyone.
Oh, I like that. See,
I'm also known as Slaughter Sin, she with Empress of Gore.
Oh, I definitely would not have gotten that one all out. That would have been a mouthful for me.
I love that.
But I love it. Yes.
So, Cindy, welcome to the show. Let's start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into horror.
Thanks, Tim. Well, I am a writer, director, special effects makeup artist, and I've been doing this for a little over a decade. I started with a small group of 10 aspiring filmmakers in New York City, the great heart of New York City, called Writer's Scene. We ran we did a lot of like indie films, a lot of guerrilla filmmaking. We put together like a variety show where we had acts integrated with our short films, and so I slowly started to have a name for myself in terms of like the horror realm there. And then when I moved to Florida, it was really kind of hard to like meet people that were like kind of like-minded. And so I started the Horror Tour Guide, and I started to do my own exploring and just kind of welcoming everybody, promoting all things horror. So I said like kind of like a virtual horror experience. So for your like one-stop shop for all your horror needs. So I promote a lot of independent people. I do celebrity interviews. I am a horror host as well. So I do a lot of like vlogging and blogging. I travel. I'm kind of known for like my haunted history travel blogs. And
Cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I make horror films. I love it.
That's awesome. And but so we're gonna get into that a little more detailed in a bit. But so here's kind of an obvious question that every horror fan kind of gets asked. But so we figure we'll just get it out of the way right in the beginning. So what is? But I'll give it a little twist. So what is your favorite horror films that you have? And like maybe if you want to make it easier, focus on the one that maybe got you really into your love of horror.
Okay, so any horror fan knows that this is not a fair question.
I know. That's why I wanted to get it out of the way early. We'll just get it done and move on.
I would have to say I would give you the top 3 that come to my head at the moment. So I would have to say one of my all-time favorite films is Pan's Labyrinth. I'm a huge foreign horror movie buff, and I adore fantasy horror. So that being said, I'm going to go to Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, you made Tim's eyes light up. I don't know if you could see, but that's one of his
I love that
favorites.
one. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It's just, there's just so many things that I could say about that film. And the aesthetics. Well, some of the acting is like meh.
Yeah.
Most of it, for the most part, is just like such an amazing film, and it broke so many like barriers in terms of the aesthetics. It's just working with like different cameras, and I mean, I studied down to his like behind the scenes and all the back stuff. So I'm a huge fan of that, and I like the original Pet Cemetery and the original Poltergeist. Okay, I'll leave it there. Going off,
Those are all excellent choices, and actually, it's
I like
kind of
extra-
refreshing actually, because a lot of people say the same, usually the same kind of ones, like the original, which happens to be mine, like the original Halloween, The
Mhm.
Exorcist. But it's nice to hear sometimes to get a different viewpoint of someone's that doesn't go to those main ones that people bring up, which is really cool.
Well, I love my slasher films. I love my creature features. I as a horror movie buff, I have a favorite in each subgenre. So, I mean, if you want to talk about sci-fi horror, I like Extra, and if you're gonna go down the paranormal realm, we have The Exorcist. I mean, I could keep talking forever, horror films. I'm really, really big into foreign horror because they have a little more creative control in terms of what they can, what they can do without so much of the censorship stuff. I'm a big fan of Takashi Miike. He's a Japanese horror director. Ichi the Killer, he made Audition. You know, I like his style, and I like the fact that he could work with very, very small budgets, but can also do budgets on like a grandiose scale.
Yeah, some of the foreign horror films that I've seen this year have just blown me away. I mean,
Oh
actually,
yeah,
the past couple of years, like I don't know if you saw, we just finally got around to reviewing it too. Was One Cut of the Dead, which was absolutely fantastic. I
that
don't
was,
know if you saw that one
that
yet.
was a fun film. Yeah, I liked. If you haven't watched it, I have. Aterrados is a Spanish horror. It's called The Terrified in English. I believe it's still streaming on Shutter. If you get a chance, that one's a really good one. And there's, if you guys are, if you guys like Brightburn, that movie, like that's,
Oh yeah.
I have a recommendation for you. It's an Italian horror film. It's called. It has the weirdest, stupidest name. Honestly, it's called Jeeg, Jeeg.
Oh, okay.
Jeeg Robot. My name is Jeeg Robot. So it's based on an old anime character named Jeeg Robot, but it has really no real correlation to the film other than that somebody was a fan of that anime. And so this guy is kind of like some kind of rogue like criminal kind of thing, and he accidentally becomes a superhero. But picture a guy that's kind of like running, like has all these like drama. And but it's so cool, and he's like just learning these powers and everything like that, and he's never really done anything good for himself or for anyone else around him. So it's like now having these superpowers and having a big responsibility as a kind of like a somewhat of an anti-hero is pretty freaking good. I really love the movie.
Oh,
Very
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Great film.
Yeah, and we were huge fans of Brightburn, so I'm glad you brought that one up. That was a good one that a lot of people I know got mixed reviews, and I don't know why. I absolutely loved it. I thought that was great, that one.
It was a great film. It just in my opinion, it just needed to be elongated. Like it was lacking something for me. And I think that what it was lacking was just a little more time. I wanted to see more. So it definitely left you with that urge to want to see more.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think it was like right at an hour and a half. It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
I remember.
I think it's tough to cross genres, straddle genres like that too.
True,
end
yeah.
up- people get confused, sometimes. But
Mhm.
so Cindy, we know you're obviously a huge horror fan, but you got to live the dream of actually working in the horror industry. So, what are some of the projects that you worked on?
When I was living out in Hollywood, I produced 3 of the witchcraft films. So if you watched the witchcraft series,
Hmm.
I think I did like the last 3 of the franchise, which is, I believe it was 14, 15, and 16.
Oh my God, I didn't realize there were that many.
Oh,
I've seen some of that. I've seen some of them, but I didn't realize there were that many now. Wow.
It's like 12, 13, 14.
Oh,
I know 14 is in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I produced those 3. I was like line producer on that, and I actually wore several hats on that. And some of the scenes were filmed in my house at the time too. So if you watch like the yoga scene and everything.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and And then we had there's actually a really funny story too with while we were filming, while we were rolling, it was like kind of like something very embarrassing happened to one of the actresses, and we caught it on film. And I so wish they would have like offered some bloopers for that. But yeah, so I did that. I just recently produced something, one of Dustin's films recently this year. It's called The Lady in the Room, The Woman in the Room, and that's based off of a film by a story by Stephen King. So it's actually a Stephen King story.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I was pretty excited about that. So I have something attached with Stephen King's name on it.
Oh, that's good. Tim's a huge Stephen King guy.
Yes. Oh
have you heard of The Woman in the Room? It's a short film though. But the poster is pretty cool. I could like send it out to you guys so you could check it out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have produced a couple of things. I've written a lot of films and worked on a lot of people's projects. And I do like kind of like everything. I wear like multiple hats. I mean, when you're working in the indie world, that's what you do. So I've done a lot of makeup for people's films. There was a Wu-Tang film that was supposed to come out, if anybody's into like hip hop. And one of the characters, they were going to do a backstory about his life. And I worked on a kind of like the trailer for that, but I don't think it went any further than that. But yeah, so a bunch of stuff.
That's funny you said too, the wear all the hats, because we had interviewed an indie director once, and she said that like her project was so tightly budgeted that she literally, before they went out to film stuff, she was doing like her own craft services and like making food for everybody.
I was the same thing. I completely empathize with her. Yeah, when I worked on my first feature-length film, I had a film called Feral Child, which now has went back to being a revised script that I'm now trying to shop. But because I invested about $30,000 of my own money in this film, and I was craft services, I was the scout, I was the transportation, I was the director, the special effects makeup artist, the writer, in some cases the script supervisor. I worked with audio. I mean, it was just crazy. It was working 14, 16-hour days up by it was in Greenwich, Connecticut, and in a beautiful, beautiful house that happened to be haunted. So that's part of like the tragedy of my film, because after I made this feature-length film, it got greenlit for Tribeca, and I gave them the rough cut. And once I went to make the final cut, it crashed. I lost the whole film completely.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And one of the girls that started my film, she was in, I don't know, I'm gonna take this back, guys. I don't know if you know this film, but it was a film with Sandra Bullock and Tom Hanks called Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close.
Oh
I've
yeah.
heard of it. Yeah.
That was the one. It was like after 9/11, right? It took
yes,
place? Little boy. That was a really good movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So my lead actress, the little girl, she was in that film. She played the boy's first kiss, the girl that owned the horse ranch. Like,
right, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like his first like love, or his like first little kiss. Well, that was my lead actress in the film. And her name is Chloe Rowe. And I love you, Chloe, if you're listening. She's grown now, but she was an amazing actress, and it was the first time I ever worked, a feature-length horror film with a child. So it was pretty cool, but I lost the film. The house was haunted, and there was a lot of paranormal activity going on, while I was shooting, after shooting, and then to the point the lady that owned the house like left in the middle of my shooting, and she left me the house. She gave me her estate for 6 or 9 months. Yeah, she literally left, and she was like, "You can do whatever you want." The house was fully furnished. She had some kind of like a really bad paranormal encounter, and she freaked out and moved out the state literally the next day.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Yeah. You might need to get like what's the one from the Dead Files, or the Zach Baggins or whatever. You need to get them over there.
we found out actually it was supposed to be the house was supposed to be turned into a documentary, because the I found out that there was a woman that hung herself, and her child was born, I mean, died in the house, and they were buried underneath the floorboards of the house.
Oh,
Yeah, and then the husband apparently died during the Civil War too. So during that time, because so many people were dying, people had to bury their dead on their own property. So they never removed the bodies. Obviously, it's kind of funny, like poltergeist,
I
right?
was gonna
You didn't
say it's
move
like you moved the house, but you didn't move the
bodies.
bodies. I was gonna,
Yeah, kind of like in this
I
situation
mean the
too.
headstones, the headstones.
They expanded on the house and they built on top of their, their burial plots. So, there was some like weird, freaky stuff that everybody can attest to. And
Oh my gosh.
Is it
yeah,
bad that I want to like now go visit the house when I hear those stories? I like to.
I have pictures I could send you. I have a picture of something that came out in a fireplace, and it looks like. Well, I don't want to tell you what it is to see if you see it.
Yeah, no, send it to us. I love like those things where people send you the pictures. Like, can you see the ghost? And yeah, no, I like that. I definitely are all about that kind of stuff. So let's I want to talk about your websites because you have two really good websites. So we'll start with the first one, which I guess this was the first one that you created, right? Which was the horror tour guide. So, and I was going through it, and it's one of the most like in-depth sites. In there, I was going in there and like just going through. I didn't even have enough time to go through all of it. There was so many cool little links to stuff. So why don't you tell everyone about that? Because I think I know our listeners will absolutely love this site.
Yeah, well, horror tour guide, it really all depends on what you want. We try to offer it's free, everything that we offer. So there's free like video games there. I believe we have like Vira one, a Friday the 13th one, Slender Man, and a bunch of other like really cool like computer horror games. And a lot of these things that we feature on the site, it's a little mix of like we started like 100% like pro indie, but the thing was when I first launched or whatever, I noticed that the same problem that independent creatives have is that you're not really getting attention because you're new or you're fresh or people don't really you really haven't had that much that many hits. It doesn't mean that you lack creativity. It just means that the marketing really isn't there. You haven't been seen. So we noticed that when we started adding commercial stuff to the site, that people started coming more and gravitating more towards the site. But in turn, it was also helping those indie people because now they're like, watching their videos. So basically it was just as an independent creative myself, I found it hard in the industry. It's a hustle, it's a struggle trying to really be one that stands out in your craft. And I found that maybe going creating something that I have a passion for, that at the same time I can also create content for, and people could see my stuff as well, but then it just turned into like I kind of want to help everybody. And I kind of love horror. So it's like as it started growing, I started meeting a lot of people in the industry that were like excited to be a part of it and help me promote it, and then talk about their crafts and and spend their time. And actually, I'm pretty excited with this. Horror tour guide actually has grown to the point where now people are coming to me and asking me for referrals for other people, for other creators. So I need an artist, or I need, and it's so cool because, hey, I can't, like, I don't really want to make mention of names, but there is a famous female horror director that was recently working on a project this past holiday season, and I reached out to her about 2 months ago to see if I can get an interview with her, because not only do I admire her as a female filmmaker, but she also is one of the few that have made it, for so many years as a person of color. And so she's also somebody that I admire in that sense as well. So reaching out for her in the interview, she never like really responded to me. I see her like kind of like, yeah, we could do that. I mean, hit me up in a couple of months kind of thing, But then like a week or two after that, she's like, I see all these like messages in my email and they're coming from her. And she's like, oh my God, did you interview this one person? It was a special effects makeup artist that I interviewed named Cliff Wallace, that if you know the name, he's freaking brilliant. He's worked on Hellraiser and oh my God, like I can go down the line. The man's been making films since the 70s and he's still working on big films now. He did worked on Hellboy with he's worked on so many big films. But anyway, she was trying to search for this guy and trying to connect with him, and she couldn't find him. She couldn't find his information or whatever. And I made the connection, and they wind up. So he got a job out of it, and she got a special effects makeup, and that movie is going to be kick-ass. And she promised me that I would have first look at it because of that. So
that's awesome.
Me. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. So she's going to mention it on my horror tour guide, and I should be interviewing her this month.
Oh, cool.
Very excited about that, guys.
Yeah, that was one of the things I did actually. I looked at some of your some of the links from your thing. So I watched actually today. I guess listened to, but I watched the interview you did with the guy from McCamey Matter, which was that was a really good interview.
Yeah, he's crazy. That's actually a 2-part. That was a video podcast. That's where we were trying out like different things in terms of how we're, so some of my interviews are written, but some of them are like video podcasts. And yeah, McCamey Manor is one. He's on a YouTube. Russ McCamey and Holly Taylor with his girlfriend.
Oh, I've got to go check that out because that place fascinates me.
Yeah, that's that one's a really good one.
Oh yeah, and this one's good because I've seen like clips of him, but I have to say, Cindy, you did an amazing job. Got a lot out of him.
Yeah, I think I got more out of him than the average person because he admitted stuff to me that I never even read about or heard. And because I was destined to get that out.
Yeah, no, that was a fantastic thing. I was like, oh my God, he's like telling her everything. That was really
great.
Like crazy. Yeah.
Well, not a bad guy in person. I mean, he's an okay person when he talks to me, but I don't know. There's a lot of mixed things with Russ there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your other website, which I'm really interested in hearing about, and that is womenofcolorinhorror.com.
Yes. I'm really excited about that one, Women of Color. Actually, I just started that. That's actually a grassroots startup support group it started as. And I launched it because as a woman of color in the industry, I'm Latina, and opportunity aren't that easy to come by, and I have been working in this industry for a really long time, and maybe I haven't, I thought at first that maybe it's just that it's kind of like a stroke of luck to like end up in a place where you kind of want to be. And maybe one day, because I'm like, there has to be another way to get to that. I've hit a lot of walls. I wasn't taken serious. I've had like a lot of people, I've run into like different kind of sleazes in the industry as well, so I never, nobody really respected me or my talent, or doubted me because I was Latina, where I come from, like background wise, because that does happen, and I was stereotyped, and I thought that maybe it was just kind of like a me thing until I started meeting a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of women that were experiencing the same thing. And I mean, these women were just as talented, if not more, and then last year, without like creating steam, I came across I follow a lot of women in the industry because I know being a woman in this genre, it's like it's the only genre that has such a small margin of females working in this industry, and an even smaller margin of women of color. But women in general are a minority in the horror industry. So because of that, I've always supported my fellow women in the industry because color is not a factor for me. But I noticed that for some it is. And I wasn't getting the same support, and I wasn't getting the same acknowledgement and And it bothered me because in a way I felt like they were intentionally doing that. And I know in some cases they were, but, you know, so it kind of like, it kind of like fueled me when I seen, there was something that was recently released. There was something that was released. It was a project that dealt with all these women that were supposed to be representing the faces of horror. So it was like the past, present, future faces of horror, and not a one person of color. And it really made me pissed off because there was about 50 to 100 women on that list.
Oh my
It
gosh.
wasn't like
Wow.
a list of 5, 10, so it really bothered me. And that's kind of what prompted me to do this, because I'm like, oh, hell no. There's like, there was one girl that was half Latina, and there was maybe like one Asian female that was part of that list as well. But that still kind of bothered me. And I wanted to take a stand. Now there are organizations out there, or groups that support like, specific niches, like, Black people in horror, or Latinos in horror, or Asians in horror, but I kind of wanted to have something that was still united and bringing all those, nationalities and ethnicities together as, on one platform to kind of help us across the board, because, some have more voices than others, and like, for example, I would say that one of the one of the cultures, people, races that get the least attention and notoriety are indigenous women. You know, um, People can't really roll off you can't roll off names off the top of your head. On There's not too many Indian horror female filmmakers. I mean, they're out there, they're known, they're doing things, but we don't know them. And if, like, for example, like, I remember when I found out about Nia DaCosta. Now, if I say that name, do any of you guys know who that is?
Oh yeah, actually, she's in an upcoming question I have. Actually,
Yeah. Okay. So this was a trick question I used to have for people, and I can't even begin to tell you how many people I stumped with that. Like, do you know Nia DaCosta? And they're like, and I'm like, do you know that she's like the first, Black female to direct a Marvel feature? Do you know that, she is the director of the next Candyman, not Jordan Peele?
I know, which I like that a lot of people have said they like, no, this is Nia DaCosta's Candyman. It's Jordan Peele's, yes, he's presenting it, but I guess his name is there, but you need to give the director, she needs to get her credit.
Yeah, and the reason why I admire her so much is, I mean, she comes from my hood. She comes from Harlem. She's a Harlem girl. So that kind of really excited me when I found that out, And it's like people from places like Harlem, there's not too many success stories that make it to, where she's at. So it's like, it's kind of like, I was a teacher for a few months. I was an adjunct at a Bronx preparatory high school, charter school. It was a high school, and I had grades 6 through 12. And I mean, I'm talking about, this was a creative school. So this was like a performing arts school. So there was like a lot of theater and and I came in as a film instructor covering a theatrical teacher that went on like a prenatal medical leave. And I can't begin to tell you all the kids that were so talented, but had no faith in themselves. They had no faith in their futures because they had already set themselves up for failure. It's like, wow. I remember I had one student that I was like, you're so amazing. I can't be like, well, what would you, what do you want to do when you get out of here? And I mean, this is like an 11th, 12th grader. And she's telling me, do you really think I'm good? I'm like, you're a great actress. You need to pursue this, And she's like, it's just that, I'd probably be wasting my time because they would never help a person like me. And it was a little Dominican girl, dark skin, beautiful, talented, but those words kind of crushed me because that's kind of what a lot of kids in these communities and these inner city kids, these kids in, in the hoods, quote unquote, they're already set up for failure. They already set them up with that in their mind, and there aren't, places that give them opportunities, really to believe in themselves. And I like to see things changing now in that direction. And I want to, would like to be a part of that change too, so It means a lot to me.
Yeah, a perfect example when I was looking up, we were looking for our feature film this episode, and I was looking up women of color in horror on Google, and you would see actors and actresses, but I was looking for people who were creating horror, and it wasn't out there.
Hard. Yeah.
It wasn't out there, and so it's very important that this stuff gets out because, like you said, these kids, if they don't grow up seeing women directors, they don't grow up seeing people of color behind the cameras making movies, they're not going to make the association that they can do that. So
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, that's what I think is so great about your site, because like hopefully when people will now will look for that, it'll go to your site and will help them find what they're looking for.
I want to grow this thing. I mean, I just started it, and it's really kind of just like a passion project right now. And, I'm not financially, this COVID thing really messed everybody up, obviously. But, I really, what I have in mind for this, and what I want to do to help other females in this, it's going to take a lot of building. And, I hope to, have it where I can actually raise money and get it to a point where I can actually give back and help people and really help them grow, not just doing what I'm doing right now. Right now, we're just celebrating them and, and posting their, creative works and featuring them in interviews. And also there's a page that we have on the site where I try to put news information so we can see how times are changing in terms of helping women of color. So there's like a lot of caucuses out there, the Black Female Caucus, the Latino caucus, and they're out there fighting for rights, industry rights for us right now, negotiating deals. I mean, there was like, I can't remember the company's name, but there was a production company that got cited very bad. They got into a lot of trouble because they were given a few $1 million in grant money for the specific purpose of hiring women of color, and they didn't do that. They wind up allocating the funds elsewhere. Those women never got anything, and so now they're being sued. Like now they have to pay back. They got in a lot of trouble for that. But I tend to post things like that. I tend to post like surveys and reviews and, research things that are done by universities in terms of like they do marketing research and stuff like that. And just kind of to give people kind of like a heads up on like where they're at as a person in this industry and, and how that's changing and what's out there like on the political end, because, people tend not to gravitate towards that side, but that actually impacts us greatly on the opposite end of that coin, because grant money will come, and opportunities will be presented when people are fighting more in our corner. And you'll see a lot more. I mean, I'm already starting to see somewhat of the market changing, and I'm seeing such fresh new material coming in on the scene, I'm kind of over the remakes and the reboots and the sequels and prequels and trequels. My God, how many times we're going to do Halloween? I mean, I love it. Look, I'm a horror buff, so I could talk. Can I curse?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I could talk shit about these characters because I love them as well. And I'll still watch it. I mean, I'll be like, what the hell, another remake? And I'm there watching it. Okay. So I'm kind of biased when it comes to that. But I love seeing the new stories. I love seeing the stories coming from our cultures. There's so many like different like monsters that haven't, that have been in old age stories, passed over time. I would love to see them come to life on the big screen, and being shared with the world. I think, if we're more open to things like that, I just see the film market, the industry changing into such a beautiful place of creativity and diversity, just in all aspects, because we all, as individuals, we all hold, magic. We all hold wonderful stories that need to be told, and I want to see that. I want to see all that coming to life.
Yeah, no, Tim and I are are super supportive of that, and we love to see those exact things. And so, what I was going to ask you too is, so horror is definitely the community is definitely one of the most inclusive fan communities. It's very supportive, on a whole. Do you think that'll help now that some of these names and some of these creators that may not have been heard of and now are getting heard of? Do you think that'll help that because the community is so supportive and so strong to help its own?
I mean, I think it is to some degree, but I still think that we need a little bit more of that, because there's always been, horror. The horror community has for decades in my opinion, has always been a strong knit community. And for a little while, I thought that it was kind of across the board for all that, but there's limitations to that too. So I think that, the fans definitely can take it to a different level. If there's more support out there, then I definitely think that can help. So yeah, I do.
That kind of segs right into our next question.
Yep.
And this is the one Brian was talking about with Nia DaCosta and Issa Lopez. And we're seeing more and more, not nearly enough, but we're seeing more women of color directing horror films. Who are some of your favorites that you could mention that maybe our listeners haven't heard of that could go seek out?
Okay, well, Nia DaCosta is definitely one. So I just seen a film yesterday with I'm not sure if you guys seen it. It's on Shudder as well. It's called Tigers Are Not Afraid. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah, that was one of that might have been my favorite from that year. It came out when I saw it on Shudder, and I raved about it to Tim right away because all I heard was good things, and it blew me away. I bought it on Blu-ray when it came out, even to own it. I absolutely loved that one because I think Issa Lopez is just fantastic. That was such an original kind of movie. It was so fantastic, I thought.
Issa Lopez, I think, is so amazing. I mean, that was one of those films that it's not just a horror film; it's a hybrid, obviously, because it's a drama horror,
right.
And the drama, it's more drama than it is horror because you really connect with these kids, or at least I did anyway. And the story was so involved with. There was so much. I think she did such a great job with. Combining, fiction with fantasy. I mean, fiction with nonfiction, and
right.
And how she wove those two and married those two so well together that she was able to trickle in the elements of horror, but still keeping the story of the the seriousness of a major issue that was taking place without spoiling it for the people that are. There's a woman named Adipa Mehta. She made a trilogy of. Now, to me, this is more surrealism, but she's made horror films as well. Even though she doesn't specialize in horror, it's more like thriller and psychological horror. But she's made, I believe it was Water, Air, and Fire. And I mean, that's what she was known for. That's what kind of put her on the map. And her films are absolutely beautiful. If you know anything about Bollywood films, they're very colorful. They're very vivid, and so, on the cinematography and the aesthetics, I mean, the colors, the edit is gorgeous, but then you have the impact of the story, and I mean, she's such a great and powerful director, in my opinion, because she had to overcome like horrors of reality. I mean, standing up for women as an Indian woman, standing up for oppression, how like the young brides, like Water is about a young bride, they can marry the kids as young as 5. Is disgusting, but it was a story that took place about the little girl was like maybe a 5-6-year-old bride whose husband had just passed away. And widows in certain parts of India are considered like they're almost cursed in a sense. So they have to kind of live in like a commune and everything like that. And it's a pretty interesting story. And through the eyes of a child that, was just born like maybe 5 years prior and having to endure, being ostracized, and not really even understanding anything that's going on. So, I mean, I know this is kind of like taking you off the horror end, but that was, to me, in my opinion, that was one of my favorite films from her. That one's a pretty
No, and I don't, I don't mind it straying a little away from what we deem as traditional horror, because in fact the feature film we did for that we're doing for this episode is Eve's Bayou, and that's not a traditional horror film. It has horror elements to it. It's very gothic in feel, but it was really refreshing to me to do a film like that was outside of the traditional horror but had maybe some dark elements to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean I've been dying to see that actually since it was featured in that horror noir documentary that I don't know if you saw that, Cindy. You must have seen that right on Shudder.
Yeah, I've seen
which
it.
was
My
just
friend on it, William Crane. I'm good friends with the director of Blackula.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Black, Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, Villa Monster, I think it's called. Yeah, he's on that documentary. I thought it was a really well put together documentary, but there was one film that they missed. Now I'm gonna add Oprah Winfrey to this list as one of my favorite directors because if you sing Beloved, Tony Braxton's Beloved, it's written by a Black author, and the story is just absolutely powerful. And I think for that time, because they integrated, slavery with a horror, with an actual horror story, it still makes my hair stand to me, the movie. I liked it. A lot of people have mixed reviews on it, but I thought it was such a beautiful film. He was in Lethal Weapon. What's his name?
Oh, Danny Glover?
Danny Glover, yes. He's in it too. It's such a great film to me. And so I have to put her up on the list as well, because I think that I respect Oprah Winfrey big time in terms of like the moves she made and the background and what she's come from. She's had to deal with a lot of things as well in her life, and she's persevered. And I mean, this woman is like one of the richest women in America, And so yeah, I totally respect her in the game as well. Even though she loves horror too, you'll see her in like dark films. Maybe one day I could collaborate with her because I have something she may be interested in.
Oh, that's cool. You never know, That's the thing about this industry. You never know what connection you'll stumble into, either by like just strong will or by luck or whatever. I think it's important to just keep, keep the dream going with it, and keep saying, no, I will go and collaborate with her, So that's.
I want to throw out Jackie Kung too. I want to throw her.
Oh, I love her. It's one of our favorite movies she did.
Blood Diner.
Blood Diner, yeah.
Yes. So, and she's cool as hell too. So there are so many out there. There's so many like female horror filmmakers, but we just got to bring them up to the forefront. Tanya Pinkins is coming out with something called The Red Pill. And if anybody knows who Tanya Pinkins is, she was on All My Children, was it? For a really long time, she was one of the major characters on the show, on that soap opera show. Casey Lemons is another horror filmmaker. She also directed the first Marvel film, but it was a short. And so I think right off the top of my head, those are the ones that come to my mind.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think it's so exciting about your site. I think this is it's gonna be really cool to, especially we're looking forward to sharing it with our listeners too, and get hopefully more people in the horror community will discover it and really get some great films to discover out of it as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So here's a fun part for you now. Now it's time, what you're allowed to say, because I know sometimes you may be working on projects that you can't exactly say yet. But if there's anything you want to tell us about, any upcoming projects that you have in the works that you're excited about?
Yes, super excited. Well, right now I'm near the end of my crowdfunder that barely raised any money. I was trying to raise $50,000 for a horror travel documentary. It's going to be Horror Tour Guide's first travel documentary. Since I do my haunted history anyway, and they're usually written reviews, I figured I'd give my viewers a little taste of my personality, because for some crazy reason, some people actually like me. But
well, we do for sure. So,
But yeah, so I'm going to be doing that. And then it's also going to be paired with a found footage documentary on Let Her Sin, She Wolf Empress of Gore. So you get to, it's going to be fun. I figured, I was thinking quarantine. So I was thinking, what can I do that's not going to endanger the lives of other people? And I can still get something out there. And because I want to get back into filming, you know, I took a little respite for quite some time because a good friend of mine that was part of my original production company, Writers Scene, had passed away from cancer. And that really like kind of stopped my creativity flow. Like I didn't want to film anymore. I just kind of like gravitated towards writing and I kind of stuck in that little safe zone. But, you know, but I'm ready to come out again. I have too many projects out there that I know that it's kind of like it's not going to get done if I don't do it, you know? So and I am, so that's one thing. I've been talking to, I can't say certain things, but I am working with a famous director that's coming out of a hiatus. He hasn't filmed for a couple of years and he's coming out with something. And I've been actually working with him on his script, helping him with some ideas and stuff. I mean, he pretty much has it down packed because he's amazing, but he's actually taking a lot of my feedback into consideration and incorporating some things. And I've been working with him on like, you know, just kind of helping him, you know, with creature building and stuff like that. But
cool. You already got us sold with what you said, creature building. We're all in right away. So.
Yeah, so I may be producing this film. So he's in pre-production, and he's almost done with the script. And he was debating whether, you know, so if it goes down, I'll be a producer on that project.
Nice. Well, we're definitely intrigued.
And I'm working on well, I'm currently shopping a couple of scripts, and I'm working on brand building a little bit more to try to see, because I feel like the higher I can go, the more that I can help other people too, and which is what I've been doing. I've been bringing people on and, you know, getting girls that are really doing great things and just getting them on podcasts and featuring them on as panelists. I just got a few girls on the New York City Horror Film Festival this past year that ended. And that was pretty fun. But, you know, it's good when you're in a position where people are asking you, hey, do you have any people that you could recommend? I'm like, yes, this is what I wanted. Now I can, you know, I'm like, you're up, you know, and, you know, and it's good. So I'd like to be doing that a lot more. I'm working on this film that I hope that it can go into production late this year. And right now it's very early in its stages, but I have spoken with a couple of like horror celebs that have already agreed to be a part of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but until I have you know, so I've already had a go on 2 of those, and then I have somebody else that's interested in producing it. That's pretty famous too. She's a female in the industry. She's not a woman of color, but she's definitely a woman that I admire in the horror industry, and she's interested in the film as well. So hopefully you should be seeing some upcoming productions for me. And yeah, I tend to push. I'm going to be pushing a lot more on the horror tour guide end and seeing if I could get some, you know, some fresh content on there. Also working on an animation short that kind of doesn't really have anything to do with horror, but it's about the horrors of reality, right? Eating disorders. So it's an animation, but a personal kind of thing. And a lot of people might hate me behind this one, but it's based on my own personal experiences. So I don't care. It deals with obesity and like anorexia, bulimia. And it's called the Eating Disorder Championships. So yeah, it's kind of like a little parody on, you know, on weight loss, weight gain. And, you know, and like I said, it's based, it's not trying to make fun of anybody's disorder or anything. It's just, it's based on me laughing at myself, my own personal battle with.
Sometimes parody, in a way, is like what gets people more attention to, because then it kind of eases a difficult subject sometimes, that they could actually maybe interpret it and understand it a little better through laughter, and through parody. So
Yeah, it's just that everybody's so damn sensitive nowadays. You have to like kind of watch a piece of kid. And I'm actually a person I'm a realist and I'm pretty outspoken. So sometimes things come out and it's just like, sorry, I had to say it. It needed to be said. And and I, but I mean, I'm a storyteller too. So it's kind of like when you have that free flowing mind, you got to watch those filters.
So, Cindy, we're obviously gonna link your two websites in the show notes, but where can people find you on like social media in terms of contacting you directly?
Social media. So you can find me I'm on all the multimedia platforms. So we're on Horror Tour Guide on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Google. On Facebook, it's you have to add the letter even though the horror site is not the Horror Tour Guide, it's Horror Tour Guide. But we added the because I got flagged and taken down, so I had to come back up. I don't like my horror memes. I don't know what's wrong with these idiots. But on Facebook. But yeah, so if you're coming for women of color, the website is www.horrortourguide.com once again. And if you're interested in women of color, you can come visit us. And I apologize. The site is still in the making. So you'll be seeing a lot of changes with women of color throughout the year. But it's www.womenofcolorinhorror.com. If you're a woman of color or if you made a film with a woman of color, it's for, by, and about women of color in horror, thriller, and sci-fi genre. So any kind of dark, macabre, films you want to promote or whatever, please reach out to me. The group is open to everyone. It's not just, anybody could participate, because that's the whole point. But just as long as you keep to the theme of who you're promoting and celebrating. And so we're on Facebook at Women of Color in Horror. We're on Instagram at Women of Color in Horror 1. And that's on Instagram. And on Twitter, it's Women of Color in Horror. But I'm having problems with the Twitter account, so there's really not that many posts on. I'm still working out the whole Twitter crap for Women of Color. But yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. That's pretty much it.
Well, that's awesome. We'll make sure we share that all too on our page. And of course, any of your projects that you want us to help promote, just say the word. We'll make sure we talk about it. We love supporting independent films, especially now independent women of color in horror films too. We'd love to help promote that even more. So let all the horror fans know what's out there for them.
Thank you. Yeah, and if there's any filmmakers listening and you're looking for anybody, any women of color in horror and different, because I've already had a lot of people reach out to me if they're looking for editors or makeup artists or even artists in general. You want artwork on your, in your set. I mean, these women are creative, and a lot of them are powerhouses. That's following my Facebook. I mean, I have there's women that are running their own film festivals. There's women that have these like elaborate businesses where they're making prosthetics and toys and props and bags and, and wardrobe, people that work from, and all in different, areas in the industry as well, like for HBO and Netflix. And we do have women of color, small group of women of color that are very happy about this, and they are very supportive. So I would encourage you, if you are, to please join and be a part of it, because I also post opportunities that are sometimes pretty general, and anybody can also take advantage of it.
That's awesome.
Right. Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I loved all the information we got at it, and it was so great talking to you. And of course, hopefully we'll keep in touch with you a lot, and we'll make sure we help promote all your stuff. I'm definitely looking forward to that horror tour guide documentary, though. That sounds really cool.
Thank you. Yes, please. Oh, yes, I'm on Indiegogo. So, and I have like about 2 weeks to raise money. It really was to upgrade on equipment and stuff because I want to try to get this. You know, if I'm not at a certain level in terms of what I'm filming with, it might not go as far as like YouTube. And I'm trying to get it on VOD so, you know, more people can enjoy it. And that's really what I need. I need the help, and I need to pay the people that are going to be helping with that. So like the production process, like the video effects on it and the editing, and that all costs money. I'm not trying to do a low budget. I'm like trying to step out of the low budget, the ultra low budget. I'm trying to get up just a little more. But thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Oh yeah, and you're welcome anytime you want to come on and promote anything. The mic is open for you.
Thank you so much, guys. You guys rock. Yeah.
All right, Brian. So that was another fantastic interview. We've been very fortunate this year to start off the season 5 with 2 great interviews and very different interviews, like you were pointing out earlier. That it's always fun to get the actors and the directors and producers and stuff like that. That's always really, really cool. But I just as much enjoy talking to people that are in other aspects of horror that are tackling different areas of horror that are just interesting to talk to.
Yeah, no, and like we said, we've always based a lot of our show off of our favorite podcast, Coaster Radio, and that they were so big on that too, getting the more niche people and interviews from the different things. Like they would get theme park people, but then they'd also get like Tim was saying earlier. Or, well, actually, it was off audio. You didn't hear it, but Tim and I were discussing it. And then you would get like a guy that built like a roller coaster in his backyard, So it's kind of cool like that. So once again, we like to model ourselves after that. And to me, it's some of the most fun interviews we get are those unique interviews of people that are doing other things in the industry, along with maybe making movies, but also supporting other filmmakers.
All right, so let's get to our featured film, and this one's going to be really different, you guys. So when we were looking for a featured film this episode, we obviously wanted to do one by a woman of color because it was tied in with the theme of our interview, and it's also incredibly important to feature these from time to time. And I kind of ran across this one. We were thinking of doing Tigers Are Not Afraid, which is a fantastic movie, but I felt like we had talked about it a lot because we both really love that movie. So I was kind of looking for one that maybe we hadn't seen. And I ran across one that was featured on the Horror Noir documentary on Shudder. And it's one that I really wanted to see because it stars Journey Smollett, who was fantastic in Lovecraft Country. And this was a film,
and she was good in Birds of Prey too. She played,
exactly,
which was just on earlier. It's kind of funny.
But this one was from '97, so she was a child actor at the time.
Yeah, she's really
and it stars Samuel L. Jackson. It just had it just really interested me. And as we'll find out some more stuff about this movie as we go along. But it's not strictly horror. It's not really horror at all. I would say it's definitely very horror adjacent. IMDb,
because there are some elements in there that that are very mystical and gothic in some ways. So
and it's one of those movies that's like IMDb listed as a drama, but you will I saw it on several horror lists just because it does have a lot of that Southern Gothic vibe to it. It's got some elements of voodoo to it, and it has some. Probably the realistic horror in it is probably the most scary. It's a family dynamic horror. So let's talk about this one. Eve's Bayou came out in 1997. It's directed by Casey Lemons, starring Journey Smollett as Eve Batiste, Megan Good as Cicely Batiste, Lynn Whitfield as Rose Batiste, Samuel L. Jackson as Louis Batiste, Debbie Morgan as Moselle Batiste Delacroix, Jake Smollett as Poe Batiste, Ethel Ayler as Gran Mir, Diane Carroll as Elzora, Vondi Curtis Hall as Julian Greyraven, Roger Guinevere Smith as Lenny Moreau, Lisa Nicole Carson as Maddie Moreau, and Branford Marsalis as Harry. So the synopsis is, what did little Eve see and how will it haunt her? Husband, father, and womanizer Louis Batiste is the head of an affluent family, but it's the women who rule this gothic world of secrets, lies, and mystic forces. So this one is, and I'm not going to go through spoilers for this one because I think everybody should see this one.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. And it's one that I always kind of wanted to see and never got around to it. So I'm kind of glad you picked this one.
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. And it's one of those that, obviously, I haven't seen it since 1997 when it came out. And it's one of those I probably would have lived the rest of my life never having seen, because it's not a movie that has any kind of subject matter that I would think that I would be interested in. But that's a perfect example of why we need women of color behind the camera making these movies, because if you don't get them out there, nobody's ever going to see them. And especially when I'm not out there looking for movies like this. Seeing this was a breath of fresh air, because it was really, I love when I stumble across something that I normally would not have watched or even gave a second thought to, and then I watch it and it just blows me away. So I really, really like that.
Yeah, and I think what was so good about this is the cast was so strong. I mean, there is not a bad performance to be found in this movie anywhere. Every cast member seems to be elevated. And you're talking about there are some child actors in there that have some heavy storylines and heavy subject matters. And it's delivered with such amazing performances. It's like I mean, Journey Smollett. I wanted to say Jersey Smollett because I for some reason I am like blending names tonight. Journey Smollett, who plays Eve, and she's the main character in this. She has a lot of stuff that she's and sometimes it's amazing some of the ways she delivers these lines. It's like, there's times where she's, she plays like that little kid, but then there's a time where she has to be way above her years, and she delivers that too with some sass and with some dignity and with some maturity, and it's impressive to see what a good actress she was back then. It's amazing she wasn't in like a million things.
Yeah.
From this role alone, she should have been everywhere.
Well, she's finally getting her due, I think. She's
right. Oh yeah,
getting
no,
her due.
because Lovecraft Country, she was in, Birds of Prey. Yeah, so she's definitely being noticed. But like, I mean, I can't believe that she wasn't like bigger from that movie. I mean, maybe she was in more stuff, but again, maybe that's the problem we addressed. Is that they're not getting enough. These movies aren't getting enough out there because of for whatever reason. But it's just. That's that, but this one, it was like you said, it's like this is a movie I probably may not have ever seen, although I kind of wanted to since it was mentioned in Horror Noir, because it was they were saying how influential it was, so it was kind of on my list at that point. But still, it's like with all the movies we watch, and this was like just a cusp of horror. It's hard sometimes to make this a priority. I'm just glad it became one, because it's actually one of my favorites we've seen in a while.
Yeah, I had never even heard of it before I saw it on the Horror Noir documentary, honestly, and which is kind of surprising because I thought I'd watched pretty much everything Samuel Jackson's ever done, but this one definitely went under my radar. And I think that point you brought up about how good these child actors were. This is some very heavy subject matter. I mean, I guess we should kind of go through a little bit of the story. So, as we saw in the synopsis. Louis Batiste, who is played by Samuel Jackson. Another thing too is Samuel L. Jackson has become a bit of self-parody, in a lot of his roles.
Especially ever since, since Pulp Fiction and Snakes on a Plane. It's like the people expect him to do like one of these giant screaming monologues and something mother effing plane. Always like that like.
And he's happy to oblige that in a lot of a lot of times, and so it was really eye opening to me to go back and watch this movie where he's a very serious actor and shows his range. Besides screaming about snakes on a plane, I mean he's a really good actor. Yeah,
I mean it shows how good he is. Yeah, if you ever want to see, I mean I'd say if you want to see Samuel L. Jackson just be an incredible actor. Without any kind of like Samuel L. Jackson, basically, genre that has come from it, like that Nicolas Cage type of deal. But you just want to see Samuel L. Jackson act. This is a good one to see for that.
Yeah, definitely. But he plays this this husband who's really a womanizer, and Eve basically catches him making love to somebody who's not his wife, not her mother, early on in the film, and that kind of plants the knowledge to young Eve that about who her dad really is, and the movie kind of follows as more and more evidence of this is uncovered. His wife suspects it as well, and there's a lot of dark family drama going on in this movie that she's having to deal with as she's also coming of age. And then you have it set against this backdrop of Eve's Bayou, which they say in the beginning of the movie was this plot of land that was left to Eve, and these people that we're watching in the movie are descendants of this lady named Eve. And it's real gothic, one of those really Southern Gothic stories. But one thing I really loved about this movie is it's one of those that, and even Roger Ebert said it when we get down to the trivia here, but because he listed this as his best movie of '97, was talking about how he went back and watched it 2 or 3 times, and I really found myself thinking a lot about the movie after I finished it. It has some, I don't know if it's the way it's shot or the imagery or what it is about it, but my mind kept returning to it over and over. I don't know if you got the same thing, Brian, but it really is one that you have these movies that kind of just fade away the minute you leave the theater, and this one just really stuck in my mind.
Yeah, no, same here. And I like another performance which I want to make sure. I mean, of course we mentioned the kids, which also includes Megan Good, who's been she's been in a lot of stuff since. But she was good. She was still young in that role too. But Lynn Whitfield, who is always delivers an amazing performance in whatever she does. She was so incredible as Samuel Jackson's wife in this, and of course the mother, because she's, I feel like she just manages to capture the mood that she should perfectly in every scene. It's like this, it's hard. She goes through this emotion where she's like literally trying to, she plays that where she's trying to ignore the stuff that she doesn't want to deal with and just deal with her family. But the fact that like it's all around her, and you can see it kind of like consuming her to the point where she can't hide it anymore. She can't pretend she doesn't see it.
Right. Yeah.
What's going on. And, and here she's dealing with all these crazy things. On top of it, and I think this is what makes it. This is where the horror Jason comes in. There's her sister-in-law, which Samuel Jackson's sister in this, Moselle. She has what they call this. I guess they call it second sight in this, where she does like she does this like not fortune telling. She doesn't really do the fortune telling. She does kind of like, I guess, what did she call it? She had a term, but
Yeah.
But it turned out. Eve has the same thing, and so she kind of links with her aunt a little bit, and so there's that kind of thing. So there's this one whole, not to spoil it, but there is a sequence where this vision that the aunt has, like, basically consumes the family and applies all this extra pressure on them, which they're already dealing with. And it just, you see how that now, like, just totally, like, it's like this, you feel everything building up. And it's just I don't know. There's something about it that is just so well done that you can't stop thinking about it, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very haunting movie, and not in a ghost sense. It's just a very haunting movie. Maybe because of the emotions, the performances, the setting, the backdrop. I mean, everything just combines to like you almost feel like you're. I was kind of transported into this world while I was watching it, and that doesn't happen a lot. With me in movies, a lot of times I'm I'm aware that I'm watching something. Whereas this one, I really got sucked into this movie, like I was living in that world for a time, and it's just a talent to Casey Lemons as a director, I guess, because it enthralled me. I really want to watch the director's cut of this. There's a director's cut of this movie that apparently the theatrical version left out an entire character.
Yeah, I saw that. I couldn't believe that because I'm like, well, what did they leave out?
Yeah, so I really want to see the director's cut of this. And one thing you were saying, Brian, about the build-up, I thought that was great too, because you kind of get immersed in this world, and you kind of get drawn into these dark family secrets, and then it culminates in something we won't give away. But I really thought all that was well done, and does not handhold the audience, does not babysit the audience. There's room for ambiguity in this film that I thought was really thought-provoking, and maybe that's why my mind keeps returning to it, because there are a lot of unanswered questions and things. I really like that about it. So yeah, this one was a surprise to me. Total surprise. I did not expect to do. I would have never in a million years thought we'd do this movie on the podcast, because it's not really horror. It, like Brian said, it does have some horror elements in terms of the second sight and the voodoo and that kind of thing, but definitely not our typical movie we normally do.
Now, I did look it up. It looks like there was a DVD released that has a director's cut on it. I was looking for a Blu-ray version, but I couldn't. But it looks like I saw on eBay that someone was selling a director's cut.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I'm not sure how. I didn't look into the details to make sure it really was that, but that's something I want to seek out now. Figure that out.
If there's only one slight nitpick I would give to the whole movie, and this is extremely slight, and that is being a movie from '97. I thought some of the flashbacks and dream sequences were a little '90s-ish, if I could say that. I mean, they just come off a little dated, but it does not in any way detract from the movie. I thought it's still just fantastic. That's just, it's not the movie's fault. It was made when it was made. So, it is what it is. That would be the only slight criticism I would give from this movie, but otherwise I just absolutely loved it.
Supposedly this was from a book, I believe, too. So I might want to track down the book, actually, see what maybe they will get some answers about that character that was cut out too.
Oh yeah. So guys, definitely check this one out. Even if you're not, I know it's not strictly horror, but if you just want a good movie, and the other thing I really like, Brian, is what we were talking to Cindy about, is seeing, she was talking about, women of color putting their own perspective on things, and maybe maybe it doesn't fall into the traditional horror category of a slasher or a haunting or a demonic possession, but I'm sure what Casey Lemons was portraying on the screen was horror. Maybe not from her personally, her own background, but it was a horror that could have happened in her culture.
Right.
That's something from her perspective that I would have never thought about or been exposed to without seeing this movie. And I thought that was fantastic. That's the reason I love seeing movies like this and seeing movies from other perspectives, because you get to see things you don't get to see every day. And when you watch the same movies made by the same cultures, made by the same genders over and over again, you don't realize what you're missing out on because you don't see it. You don't realize you're literally in a box, right, and you're only seeing the same things over and over. And how many times do we complain about, oh, I wish they would just do something different, and why we got to make remakes and this, and why don't they just do something different? You don't have different filmmakers making these things. You have the same people making these things over and over and over. Of course you're going to get the same product. Yeah. Every movie's made by white guys. Of course, you're going to get the same product over and over and over again. So if you're one of those that's out there complaining about how they don't make anything original anymore, bring people in, women, minorities, bring people in that have a different perspective, that can make those original ideas.
Exactly. And actually, I want to point out, we'll jump right to a trivia piece because of that, because actually this movie was selected by the Library of Congress in 2018 for preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. So that's a good accolade for this movie, because I think it's something that I think a lot, especially if you haven't seen it, watch it. I would go watch it right now. It's on Hulu and it's on Prime, so most people have one or the two, if not both. So you really have no reason not to watch this right now.
Yeah. I won't go through it. We've actually covered most of the trivia as we were talking, but I did say that Journey Smollett received critical acclaim and a Critics' Choice Award for playing Eve, which is nice. She got some recognition for that. And like we said, Roger Ebert said this was a very small indie film.
Yeah.
$3 million budget. and Roger Ebert's review basically put it on the map. So this is another case of where this movie could have been completely forgotten had not a major film critic, showered it with praise. So again, another example of how these films can get lost, and they really need to be put into the mainstream where everybody can enjoy them. So yeah, check out Eve's Bayou. I know it's not the typical movie we cover on the podcast, but it's a fantastic movie.
Yes.
All right, Brian. So what was our beer pairing for this one? I'm sure this was a little tricky.
Yeah, this was a little tricky, but I figured out, I did find a good one, and it's called Voodoo from Tin Roof Brewery in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So it's only 5%, but it's a heavily dry-hopped American pale ale which relies on flaked wheat and oats to enhance the tropical fruit flavors provided by the hops. It says expect melon, passion fruit, tangelo, and pine flavors and aromas from the use of Citra and Simcoe hops. Heavy dry hopping and the use of oats and wheat result in a naturally hazy beer.
Nice. Very nice.
So that's a good, nice beer to enjoy with watching Eve's Bayou.
Yeah, I think so. All right, well, let's get to our triple threat from last week. This is the one. You should have got this one, guys, if you're long-term Civil Gore listeners. The answer was an actress, Lauren Marie Taylor.
Yes, one of our favorite people on the planet.
Yes. While I may have been a fan favorite in my first film, I was really loving my longest recurring role. That awkward phrasing there was on purpose. I was really loving because Lauren Marie played fan favorite counselor Vicky in Friday the 13th Part 2, but also had a long-time role on the popular soap opera Loving.
Which a lot of people is where they know her from. It's funny. Of course, us horror fans know her as Vicky, but...
Yeah, no, I think she said she's probably more known for Loving because that was her longest, her longer role. Clue number 2, I once starred in a film with several Saturday Night Live alumni. So she starred as Elaine Keese in the 1982 comedy Neighbors, starring SNL alumni John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Tim Kazurinsky. Clue number 3, I technically had appearances in 3 of one of the most popular slasher franchises. So, of course, she starred as Vicky in Friday the 13th Part 2, but also appeared in Part 4 and Part 7 in archival footage. That was tricky.
That's how much everyone loved her character, that they had to put her in those archive things to watch her sadly be killed.
All right.
Twice.
So,
Twice more. Well, actually, we still think she's alive. So our Vicky fan fiction is still in the works. So.
Yeah, we got to make that canon at some point.
Yes.
All right, so this week we're looking for another actor or actress, and I really like this one. This is a good one, Brian. Clue number 1. Along with my main horror franchise, I appeared in 3 other popular franchises. Clue number 2. I am technically part of the Star Wars expanded universe. And clue number 3. I share a cool distinction with Christopher Lee, Robert Englund, Warwick Davis, Brad Dourif, and Tobin Bell. That's a great question.
Yeah, I was kind of proud of this one myself.
That was actually really good and tough. I think it's fairly tough too.
Yeah, I think it's gettable, but the problem is I think it could be a number of people. But there's a couple that narrow it down, but it's probably like those are the ones that are obscure to try and figure that out. So you literally need to get 2 of the 3 before you even tackle the third. So it's I worded it in a tricky way intentionally to make it a little bit harder. So
yeah, that one's gonna be tough. All right, so we have another great fan topic food question courtesy of the horror mailman David McHugh. Aquatic horror or space horror?
This is an interesting question, actually. And I don't mean this to be a cop-out, but I kind of like them both, but for different reasons. So, to me, space horror I love because I love sci-fi. I love any movie that takes place in outer space. Obviously, as a huge Star Wars fan, I like Star Trek. I love, it's like anything that takes out in space I like. But however, if you want to then flip it, I think I'd be more afraid of aquatic horror because I've always, something about being isolated out in the middle of the water where you can't, like you've seen too many times. Like imagine like your boat capsized. And I've been in a situation when I was a kid where we were out on, I believe where it technically was we were in Connecticut, but I think we were actually on the Long Island Sound, which goes, so we were on there, and we were on a Hobie Cat. It was my mom and one of her friends, and it tipped over in the middle. And I mean, granted, there's people all around, and I had a life jacket. Also, by that point, I was young, but I could still swim, so I was fine. I was treading water with my life jacket, waiting for one of the many boats to come by. But the thought of imagine being trapped in out in the water, or down below, to where it's like, I know, sure, space is the same thing, but most of the way I look at it is like, you're in space, you probably have the best of technology with you. Mm-hmm. So it's not as frightening to me. But being in more down, like either in the depth of an ocean or out in the middle of a body of water where there's nothing around you but more water, that I think that kind of is a little bit more frightening to me. So I'm not trying to do a cop out there, but I think I like each one for a different reason, though.
Yeah, for me, this one was fairly easy. I would go aquatic horror all the way, and that's, yeah, I like sci-fi stuff. It's not my favorite genre. I typically skew more fantasy than sci-fi, although even though I love Star Wars and Star Trek and that kind of thing, I love Alien, and it's not that I don't love sci-fi, but it's not my top favorite. But aquatic horror, on the other hand, I've always had a fear of the water. I didn't learn to swim until fairly late in my childhood. I don't think I even went underwater until I was, early teens maybe. So I definitely had a fear of the water just because I couldn't swim. And then on top of that, of course, I've told the story about my dad, like, making me terrified of alligators. So I had that whole thing, of being out on the water and feeling like there's an alligator or something's in the water that's going to get me. And then, of course, with Jaws and the sharks and stuff. So I've always had like a more closer experience with water, being afraid of water, than I would have ever had being afraid of space, because obviously I only see that stuff on TV. So that horror to me felt very real. And I think that's why I've always loved Creature from the Black Lagoon. And one of the reasons I love that movie so much is when I was younger, I went to was it Silver Springs in Florida, I think is where they'd have the glass bottom boat tours, and this is where I got the idea for the Journey to the Black Lagoon ride contest on Coaster Radio. But they had these glass bottom boats, and there's a part where they go over one of the sections where they had filmed part of Creature from the Black Lagoon, and that just fascinated me.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's where my early love of that film came from, and I'll never forget that. And I love the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride at Disney World, because you were underwater and you were being attacked by things. Like, all that stuff, like, kind of was immediate to me in my youth, so it kind of formed an impression on me very early on. And so I think that's where I just love that aquatic horror, and it's carried out through this day. I love anything with, I'm still fascinated by sea creatures. I'm still fascinated by what's under the water that we don't know about. And to me, I guess it's just more accessible than space. Obviously, I'm interested in what's out there in space, but realistically, you're never gonna. When are we ever gonna see? If something's 3 million light years across the galaxy, how are we ever gonna know? But stuff in the ocean, conceivably we could find out. It's on our planet, so that to me has always been a lot more scarier, just because it was a lot more immediate. So yeah, great question. And space and aquatic horror are very similar. Have you seen Leviathan and how close it is to Alien? And there's a lot of movies that are just take the movie set in space and put it in water, or vice versa, and you kind of get the same effect. So they're really kind of two sides of the same coin. But I've always liked aquatic horror better. But
you notice they never try and end up putting slashers into the water. I mean, well, Jason, unfortunately, that's in his storyline there. But you never said let's put Michael underwater in a giant sea vessel below. But they've joked about sending him into space, and Pinhead went to space, and Freddy was going to go to space. But they never have him down in one of those Jaws 3 type underground aquarium things.
Oh, we need to do that then. We need to remedy that. That's our next script, Brian.
Yep, there we go. That's Friday the 13th part, whatever.
Yeah.
What are we up to now, technically?
I don't know. Or a Halloween set in an underwater base. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, can't you see? Would it be H2? But H2O's already taken, so
we can't do that one.
so we're in trouble there. We'd have to think of something else, like H2O or something. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you back here next week. Again, special thanks to Cindy for coming on and giving us that fantastic interview. Check out her website. Check out her Indiegogo, and support everything she's doing for the women of color in the horror community. And we will see you back here next week.
See ya.